They say happiness is a destination, a place you'll reach when everything finally falls into place. When you land your dream job, when someone loves you back, when the world recognizes your worth. But let me ask you something. What if that day never comes? Will you wait a lifetime for someone else to give you permission to smile? I used to wait too. I waited for circumstances to shift, for pain to disappear, for people to stay who were never meant to. And then one day, in the silence of my struggle, I heard a voice. It wasn't loud, but it was clear. It said, happiness is not something you find out there. It's something you awaken within. Happiness is not a gift wrapped in glitter, handed to you by life when you prove yourself worthy. It is a decision, a quiet revolution within your soul. It is the art of choosing gratitude over regret, self-love over self, doubt and peace over perfection. You see, we've been taught to seek validation, to chase applause, to collect smiles from others just to feel seen. But the truth is, when you finally dare to sit with yourself, when you finally make peace with your scars, your story, your silence, that's where happiness begins to bloom. So today, I'm not here to tell you how to be happy someday. I'm here to remind you that you already have everything you need to be happy right now, because happiness was never lost. You just stopped looking for it inside. They say happiness is a destination, a place you'll reach when everything finally falls into place. When you land your dream job, when someone loves you back, when the world recognizes your worth. But let me ask you something. What if that day never comes? What if the applause never arrives, the wounds don't completely heal, and life doesn't unfold the way you imagine? Will you continue to put your joy on hold, waiting for a moment of perfection that may never appear? I know that kind of waiting. I've done it myself. I've stood in front of mirrors, trying to fix my outside world so that maybe, just maybe, the inside would feel okay. I believed that happiness was something to earn, something I needed to chase through the approval of others, through achievements, through fitting into a mold I didn't even create. But the truth is that belief was a silent prison, and I was both the prisoner and the warden. There came a time when everything around me was quiet. The kind of quiet that doesn't just surround you, but starts speaking to you. In that silence, I started hearing truths I had been too busy or too afraid to listen to before. I realized that happiness isn't something loud and dramatic. It's not the climax of a perfect story. It's a gentle whisper in the heart, one that tells you you're enough even when the world says otherwise. That's the moment I began to understand that happiness is not found in people, places, or possessions. It lives in the way we choose to see ourselves, in the way we decide to carry our pain, in how we respond to the uncertainties of life too often. We give our happiness away. We hand it over to people who can't carry it, to situations that are temporary, to dreams that don't always arrive. We say, I'll be happy when I lose weight. I'll be happy when I get married. I'll be happy when I'm successful. We place our joy on the other side of conditions, deadlines, and expectations. But the problem with that thinking is this. Life doesn't always work on our timeline, and people don't always love us the way we want them to. So if our happiness depends on those things, then we are destined to live in a constant state of waiting and disappointment. There's something powerful about taking responsibility for your own joy, not blaming others for what they couldn't give, not waiting for the perfect moment, but standing still and choosing to find light even in the shadows. When you stop expecting the world to fill your cup, you begin to realize that you are always capable of pouring joy into your own life. And this kind of happiness, the one that's born from within, it doesn't fade when people leave or when plans fail. It remains, it grows. It holds you on the days when nothing else does, of course. This doesn't mean that life will always feel good or that sadness won't visit you. We are human and we are allowed to feel everything, But even in our pain, we can protect our peace. Even in loss, we can choose how we carry the love. Happiness is not the absence of problems. It's the presence of resilience, the courage to still smile even when your eyes are filled with tears. It's waking up and saying today, I choose to see what is still beautiful. Even if your world looks broken, we must stop waiting for happiness to arrive dressed like a miracle. Sometimes it comes in small, quiet forms: a warm cup of tea, the sound of laughter, the feeling of being truly present in a moment. It is not always loud, it is not always obvious, but it is always available to those who are willing to look inward. When you realize that happiness isn't something you find, but something you build, you begin to treat your thoughts differently. You begin to forgive yourself. You begin to create space for self-compassion. And that becomes the soil where inner joy takes root. I've seen people with everything the world defines as success, and yet they feel empty. And I've seen those with very little who radiate peace and joy that can't be bought. What does that tell us? It tells us that happiness is not about what you hold in your hands, but what you hold in your heart. It is the stories you tell yourself when no one else is listening. It is the way you speak to your own reflection. It is the love you show to yourself in moments when no one else does. You are the home your happiness lives in. You are the caretaker of your joy. We are raised in a world that constantly teaches us to look outside for validation, as if our worth depends on how others perceive us. From a young age, we are conditioned to believe that approval is the currency for happiness. If you score the highest marks, they will praise you. If you look a certain way, they will accept you. If you follow the path everyone else is on, they will call you successful. So we begin to mold ourselves, not according to who we truly are, but according to what will make others applaud. Slowly, we start to forget the sound of our own voice because the noise of the world becomes louder. And somewhere in that noise, happiness slips away, not because we're not worthy of it, but because we're chasing it through someone else's eyes. This chase becomes exhausting. Every smile feels forced, every compliment becomes a need, and every failure feels like a reflection of who we are. We start to live for the likes, the attention, the nods of approval from people who don't even truly know us. And the truth is, even when we get those things, they don't last. The applause fades, the compliments stop. The people change, and we're left with ourselves, still searching, still empty, still waiting for a kind of happiness that can only come from within. That's when it hits you. No matter how much the world gives you, it will never be enough if you don't feel enough within yourself. There is something deeply liberating about breaking free from that cycle. It starts the moment you decide to stop living for the expectations of others. It starts when you choose to sit with yourself without judgment and ask, what makes me feel alive? What brings me peace? What lights up my soul? These are not questions the world can answer for you. They are questions only your heart knows the truth to. And when you begin to listen to your own truth, your life begins to change. Not because everything outside becomes perfect, but because the war within you starts to end. You begin to realize that happiness was never about being accepted by others. It was about accepting yourself. With your imperfections, your scars, your past, and your present, it was about standing tall even when your story doesn't match the world's definition of success. You start to find joy not in comparison, but in authenticity. Not in competition, but in connection. You start to see that you are not here to prove anything to anyone. You are here to experience, to grow, to fall and rise again, and to honor your journey, however different it may be when you turn inward and start to build a relationship with yourself. you discover a kind of happiness that is quiet but powerful. It is the happiness of waking up and knowing that you are trying your best. It is the happiness of saying no to what doesn't feel right, even when others don't understand. It is the happiness of embracing your uniqueness and realizing that you don't need to fit in to feel valuable. This kind of happiness isn't shiny or loud. It doesn't need validation. It exists in your breath, your resilience, your softness, your strength self. Acceptance becomes the foundation for lasting joy. Because once you accept yourself, you no longer live in fear of rejection. You no longer chase people who don't see your worth. You no longer silence your voice to make others comfortable. Instead, you start to honor your needs. You begin to treat yourself with kindness, not criticism. You give yourself the grace to grow without shame. And in that space, happiness begins to take root. Not as a fleeting feeling, but as a way of being. It's important to understand that the journey to inner happiness is not linear. There will be days when doubt creeps in, when old patterns return, when the outside world tries to shake your confidence. But those are the moments where your choice matters the most. You can either fall back into the habit of outsourcing your joy, or you can remind yourself that you have the power to choose differently, the power to return to yourself, the power to be your own home. You deserve a kind of happiness that doesn't crumble when others disapprove of your choices. You deserve a joy that is rooted in your truth, not in someone else's opinion. That kind of joy comes from knowing that your value is not up for negotiation. It comes from looking in the mirror and not needing someone else to tell you that you are enough. Because you are, and you always have been. Happiness is not about being someone the world will love. It's about being someone you can live with, breathe with, and smile with even when no one else is watching. We often misunderstand happiness as something that arrives once life becomes easier, once problems disappear, or once we reach a place where nothing can hurt us anymore. But life is never without its storm. There will always be pain, uncertainty, and challenges that shake us to our core. And yet, even in the middle of that chaos, some people manage to smile, to hope, to radiate peace. How is that possible? It's because they've learned that happiness is not the absence of suffering, but the presence of resilience. It's not about waiting for life to stop being hard. It's about learning how to remain soft in a hard world. True, happiness is built in the moments when you choose not to give up on yourself. When everything is falling apart and yet you decide to hold yourself together. When your heart is heavy but you still find a reason to be grateful. When you face rejection, failure, loss, but instead of letting it define you, you allow it to refine you. That strength, that ability to rise again, to feel deeply and still carry hope, that's where real happiness lies. It's not a destination you reach after everything goes right. It's something you create when everything goes wrong and you still choose to stand. We often think that happy people have fewer problems, but that's not true. They just have different perspectives. They've learned to find meaning in their pain, to see growth in their wounds, and to turn their setbacks into stepping stones. They don't deny their struggles, they face them. They feel every emotion, every heartbreak, every disappointment, but they don't let those things steal their light. They've accepted that pain is a part of life, but suffering is a choice, and in that acceptance they find freedom. Because once you stop resisting what is, you start embracing what can be. Happiness is not about pretending that everything is okay. It's about being honest with yourself. It's about acknowledging the hurt, crying when you need to, resting when your soul is tired, and still believing that better days are possible. It's about allowing yourself to be human, to feel, to break, to heal. You don't have to be strong all the time to be happy. Sometimes happiness is in the quiet decision to keep going, even when it's hard. It's in the moments when you choose to believe in something better. Even if you can't see it, yet we live in a world that glorifies perfection. But it's our imperfections that make us real. It's the cracks in our hearts that let the light in. When you stop chasing a flawless life and start embracing a full life, with all its messiness, unpredictability, and depth, you begin to understand what happiness truly is. It's not polished, it's not filtered. It's raw, honest, and deeply personal. It's waking up with a sense of purpose. It's laughing even when your eyes are still swollen from crying. It's connecting with people who see you, really see you, not just for your strengths, but also for your struggles. There's something beautiful about vulnerability, about saying, I'm not okay right now, and still showing up. About letting others into your story, not for sympathy, but for connection. Because when we allow ourselves to be seen in our entirety, we create space for healing, not just for ourselves, but for others too. Happiness grows in that space, in the spaces where we are no longer pretending, where we stop hiding our battles, where we stop wearing masks and start living with intention sometimes. Happiness comes in the form of letting go. Letting go of what no longer serves you, of the stories you've told yourself about who you should be. Letting go of the fear that if you stop pleasing everyone, you'll lose their love. The truth is, when you let go, you create space for what's real. Real peace, real joy, real love, and in that space you start to breathe again. Not for anyone else, but for yourself. Healing is not always loud. Sometimes it's a whisper in the middle of the night that says, I'm proud of you. Sometimes it's getting out of bed when every part of you wants to stay down. It's choosing to nourish your soul, to surround yourself with what uplifts you, to protect your energy like it's sacred. Because it is. Your happiness is sacred. Your light, your softness, your strength. They are sacred. You were not born to live in survival mode. You were born to feel joy, to create meaning, to dance even when there is no music, to love even when your heart has been broken. The path to true happiness is not paved with perfection. It's made of moments where you choose to come back to yourself over and over again. It's made of small choices, quiet victories, and the courage to believe in your own light, even when the world tries to dim it. You don't need to have it all figured out to be happy. You just need to show up for yourself with honesty, with grace, and with the belief that you are worthy of joy, no matter where you are in your journey. We often spend so much time searching for happiness in the future that we completely miss its presence in the now. We attach our joy to conditions and timelines. We say, I'll be happy when I graduate, when I get that job, when I find someone who loves me, when I become successful. We keep pushing happiness further and further away, turning it into a prize we can only earn after meeting a long list of expectations. But life doesn't wait for everything to be perfect before it gives us beautiful moments. Those moments are happening right now, in the middle of our chaos, in the middle of our becoming. The problem is that we're often too distracted, too overwhelmed, or too focused on what we lack to even notice them. Happiness is not hiding in a far-off dream. It's not waiting behind the next achievement or buried beneath the next milestone. It's right here, in this breath, in this moment. It lives in the ability to slow down and be fully present with what is. It's in the quiet of the morning when the world is still asleep. It's in the shared laughter between two friends. It's in the simple things, a warm meal, a deep conversation, the comfort of your favorite song. These moments may seem small, but they carry the weight of everything we're chasing. Because when you strip away the noise, the pressure, the constant comparison, what remains is the truth, that joy isn't about doing more. It's about feeling more, being more, living more deeply in the now. We are taught to hustle, to achieve, to always strive for more, And while growth is beautiful, it can become dangerous when it makes us blind to the beauty that already exists in our lives. We become so focused on what's next that we forget to feel grateful for what is. We start measuring our worth based on how much we've accomplished instead of how deeply we've lived. And slowly, without even realizing it, we begin to lose touch with our inner peace. We start living in a mental loop of not enough, not good enough, not fast enough, not successful enough. That mindset robs us of joy. It convinces us that happiness is always somewhere else, always just out of reach, but happiness is not about getting more. It's about being here, right now, and realizing that what you already have is worth appreciating. It's in choosing to be mindful, to be intentional, to be awake in your own life. It's in putting down your phone and really listening to the person in front of you. It's in breathing deeply and letting yourself feel the moment without judgment. It's in allowing yourself to laugh, to rest, to play, without guilt or shame. Happiness begins when we stop waiting and start living, fully, sincerely, and with open hearts. There's also a deep kind of happiness that comes from within when you know that you're living in alignment with who you really are. It's not about pleasing others, following trends, or fitting into someone else's idea of a perfect life. It's about tuning into your own voice, your own values, your own rhythm. It's about saying yes to what feels right and no to what drains your soul. It's about being honest with yourself, even when it's uncomfortable, because the more you live authentically, the lighter you feel. And in that lightness, happiness flows more naturally. It's also important to recognize that happiness doesn't always feel like a burst of excitement. Sometimes it's just a quiet sense of peace, a calm knowing that you are okay, even when everything isn't. It's the ability to be with yourself and feel content. It's the comfort of knowing that you don't need external validation to feel worthy. This kind of happiness isn't flashy, but it's sustainable. It's not dependent on circumstances, but on connection. The connection you build with yourself, with others, and with the present moment. The truth is, life is unpredictable. It will bring joy, pain, love, loss, growth, and stillness. But through it all, happiness remains a choice, not a forced smile or a fake positive mindset, but a real grounded choice to find light even when there is darkness, to create joy even in the middle of uncertainty, to hold on to hope when things feel heavy, and most importantly, to come home to yourself over and over again. No matter how many times you've wandered away, this is the kind of happiness that can't be taken away by failure, by rejection, or by disappointment. It's the kind that comes from within, built on presence, gratitude, self-awareness, and truth. It's the happiness of knowing that even if nothing changes, even if you never reach the version of your life you once imagined, you can still find joy right where you are. Because happiness isn't something to find, it's something to feel, something to notice, something to return to again and again until it becomes the way you live, not just something you chase. So after all the noise, the chasing, the waiting, and the endless search for something we thought existed outside of us, we come back to the simplest yet most profound truth. Happiness is an inside job. It's not delayed by circumstances, not granted by others, not purchased through achievements. It's found in the quiet acceptance of who we are, in the courage to show up authentically, and in the strength to hold space for joy even on the hardest days. It's in the way we speak to ourselves, the way we embrace our journey with compassion, and the way we choose presence over perfection. Real happiness isn't about avoiding pain, it's about honoring all of life, both the beauty and the brokenness, with an open heart. When we stop outsourcing our joy and start creating it from within, we begin to realize that the life we're searching for isn't waiting at the finish line. It's unfolding right here in this very moment. And maybe, just maybe, the greatest revolution we can ever lead is the one where we stop waiting to be happy and finally give ourselves permission to be.